movies from various genres and decades. Stay tuned for this episode. Wow, that was loud. But anyways, we're on a new episode, episode 21. And this time we're going to be doing from the small screen to the big screen. And these are actors that started off in the small and went to the big screen. And we picked three pretty cool franchises, older ones from the 60s. I picked Doctor Who. Bill got Batman, and Gary got Star Trek. Oh, cool.
Oh, that's nice.
I will have several items to be shown during my presentations.
And I figured we discussed off camera that we should go by the order that by year. And since Doctor Who is like 3 years older than Star Trek and Batman, so I figured I'll go first. And my first movie is The House That Dripped Blood from 1971. Now, this is an anthology series, but I'm not going to talk about anything except for the segment that featured John Pertwee, the Third Doctor, called The Cloak. Now, he plays a horror film star that he's almost obsessed with wanting to be a vampire. And almost to the point that, I guess it happens. And it's just the whole thing of seeing John Pertwee in a horror film, but as a monster, because you usually see, obviously we've seen him in Doctor Who from 1970 to 1973. And then for, I guess, in between the off time, to be able to film a movie. And since it was such a short segment, it was almost like maybe the amount of time that they would take for an episode. Overall, the anthology series is a good series. I mean, this one also, it has, since there's 4 stories, so there's about 20-ish minutes each, 20, 24 minutes, so in that area. So basically about that same time when Doctor Who was on, some of the episodes were about 24, 25 minutes. So this is one, if you wanted to see him outside of the character. I mean, he's done stuff before and since, but just right in the middle of his tenure as the Third Doctor, it's really good. I enjoy watching this one, because I love those.
Movie. I've seen it. It's pretty good.
I love those British anthology series that they put out in the 70s. They're just sometimes they're just better. Sometimes better than whole big giant films, because some of the films tend to be a little drawn out, but here just a perfect amount of time. It tells a story, and it has like a feature length vibe to it. So since that's a short one, my time on it is going to be short.
So what, Star Trek came next?
Yeah, let's go for Star Trek.
Okay, I'm going to start with a movie that is, I would have gone with Kingdom of the Spiders, except that I've already done that one. So we won't do that one. But this is considered by a lot of people to be a really terrible movie. I don't think it's a terrible movie. I think it's a lot of fun. It's got sort of that the killer shrews thing, and that you have to sort of throw out the believability because of the creatures. But Night of the Lepus with DeForest Kelley from 72, Dr. McCoy. And here he plays a head of a college, and he's hooking this farmer up with some scientists from his college to try to come up with a way to control the rabbit population. And unfortunately, they do some DNA modification. And instead of controlling the rabbit population, they create these giant carnivorous rabbits that are hunting people. And, people just act like this is an absolutely terrible movie. Once you just, embrace the fact that you've got this footage of real rabbits hopping around, magnified up and slowed down, it's actually a lot of fun. It's a good movie. It's a decent horror movie for the time. You just can't expect great, special effects. I really like the movie, and DeForest Kelley does a good job. The thing is, he's got sort of almost a down home, almost Western, farm boy kind of vibe to his character, which really up until Star Trek, he did a lot of cowboy movies and stuff like that. He was sort of what he was known for. And so that's kind of more his forte anyway. It's a good movie.
I have seen that one. It's they all play it straight is the one thing about it. Very, very
Yeah.
straight. The acting really isn't bad.
No.
The premise of the killer rabbits it's a little difficult, but it's actually it should be pointed out too. Janet Leigh of Psycho fame is in that thing. It's got a huge cast.
Yeah.
A fantastic. Rory Calhoun. I'm looking at it now. Janet Leigh, I knew before I looked it up. But Rory Calhoun was a big name at the time. Thought there was a couple of other. There's a lot of familiar faces that you might not know the names that pop up. I'm seeing the names here, but I can't put the name with the face anyway. But it was just when I saw, and actually, we should also point out Easter's coming up. It's a great Easter movie.
Exactly.
Perfect. Just scare the kids.
I think the kids will handle this one all right. I don't think it's too bad.
Maybe in the 70s it might have scared the kids, but
maybe a
these
little.
days I don't think so.
Nowadays, no.
Yeah. It is a fun little monster romp if you can just accept the rabbits as being carnivorous and
Run
giant.
Away! Monty Python,
Yeah, really. That's right.
And in fact, I think the first time I saw that movie, I saw Night of the Lepus. I think every time I'd see the rabbits, I was going, "Run away!"
That's a good thought. Next time I watch it,
Yeah.
I do subject that one to my family every so often on Easter.
There's a movie from.
All right, so I have to confess, I was particularly excited about this particular episode because I do love the night. I'm sticking with just the 1966 Batman series. I already showed the card, but I'm gonna show it again. I am a big fan of that 1966 series all the way back when I was a kid. And I was saying off camera that it occurred to me after we agreed to this that I could have really taken a lot of low-hanging fruit because of all the superstars that became villains on that show, but it did not do that. So I tried to stick with main characters, main villains. And my first movie is it's very much a cult movie. A lot of people put this in the Boris Karloff category now because there's one scene with Boris Karloff, but it's a movie called Lurid. It's really a murder mystery. It actually stars Lucille Ball and George Saunders. And Saunders actually had the Batman connection too, which I had totally forgotten about until about a half hour ago. He was the first Mr. Freeze. But he would be a low-hanging fruit if I were to take him as my main guy in this movie. He's not the main guy I was looking at. So it's a murder mystery. Lucille Ball is trying to figure it out. If you don't know George Saunders, he's got the golden voice. He's the guy in so many movies. He sits there and he's telling you he's going to kill you, but you don't care just as long as he keeps talking. And he does that almost all of his movies. In fact, he even does it to Sabu in What's that Disney movie? The Jungle Boy.
Jungle
What's
Book?
the You guys know what I'm talking about?
Is it
Help
Jungle
me.
Book or?
Yeah, the Jungle Book. Yeah, he's the tiger, and he
Ah,
actually does his usual shtick to the kid and says, how he's going to eat him. Yes, please run away. That would be a good sport. Make a good sport out of this. He does that in all of his movies, even in that Disney movie. But anyway, in this one, he actually plays the good guy. But you don't know for sure. He's kind of, you're not sure if you can trust him or not because in so many movies he plays the villain. But Lucille Ball keeps going to this group of detectives for advice on how to try and catch this killer. She's kind of doing the super sleuth type thing. It's
well,
nineteen
Lucille. Oh wait, never mind. Let's say
forty-seven.
Lucille Ball's almost a Star Trek connection,
Oh,
almost.
oh, that's right. Yeah, Desilu Productions. You got a point
Yeah.
there. We have another connection. Um, but this is even before her days on I Love Lucy. Not too long, 1946, a couple of years. But she keeps going to this group of detectives to help her give advice to take them on to try and catch this killer. And one of the detectives is Alan Napier, who
Ah,
played Alfred the Butler on Batman. So that's my bigger connection to the Batman series. Although it is a twofer technically. It's a really good movie. The Boris Karloff scene is what you see on all the DVD cases. If you're a Boris Karloff fan and just wanted to see it for him, I would only do it if you're a completist because he's in about 2 minutes of film, one scene. He's one of the red herrings. They think he might be the killer. She goes and he's like this magician, and he has a really great scene, but it's only about 2 to 5 minutes of film, and then that's about it. But other than that, overall, it's still a really good film, a really good murder mystery. The 1940s in Hollywood was like the peak of mysteries. You had Charlie Chan, you had Sherlock Holmes, the Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes, the most famous. You had Boston Blackie, you had the Falcon, I mean, name any famous super sleuth. They probably had a movie series in the 40s. William Warren was Perry Mason at the time, even before Raymond Burr took on the role. So it is a very good murder mystery. Has a superb cast. The main detective, by the way, is Charles Coburn, another famous character actor. And of course, Alan Napier also pops up in a few of the Universal horror movies every now and again. So he's kind of a fun British actor. But that's my first one. I find it strongly recommended. It's one of those that I first saw when I first got cable, and American Movie Classics used to show it every now and again. It's a very fun movie, and I do strongly recommend it. But don't see it for the sole purpose of seeing a Boris Karloff movie because you might be disappointed for that. But still a good movie, still worth watching. Lurid.
Sounds good. All right. Well, going into my second film is from the Fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, and we're going to 1973 and Golden Voyage of Sinbad. This time he plays a villain, and it's just kind of interesting now, years later, after first watching Golden Voyage, and then later on um, seeing him as the Doctor. So night and day. Unless you knew that it was him, it's very hard to tell because he did a different accent. He's trying to do a more Middle Eastern accent. And like I said, he plays a villain, and they have, as the title says, it's a voyage that Sinbad goes on to look for this missing piece of an amulet, and this was another one of those Ray Harryhausen movies, and a lot of fun. Now, this is one that I did see in the big screen because they used to have matinees at a local theater where I used to live, and my mother father would always drop me and my brother off. But at this time, in '73, he was 2, so he wouldn't have cared for that. So he just dropped me off, and I would enjoy going to these type of shows, and the Sinbad movies, that go back from the '50s, were always one of my favorites growing up. And this one, the stop motion, all the different creatures, and I had a friend. I was telling her about this, and she said, "Is that the one with the fighting skeletons?" I said, "No, that's Jason and the Argonauts." But this one, I mean, this is actually a perfect family film. You can't go wrong. I mean, it's got the action. The violence is so limited based on today's violence. You can just basically sit the kids up right in front of the screen, and then go off and do whatever you're going to do. But to see Tom Baker in a role before, no, it's just before he became the Doctor.
Yeah, he filmed that before.
So just to see that, okay, this one predates, just like the next one on the list does too. But it's kind of interesting to see him as a villain.
I saw that movie as a kid in the theater, and I don't think I've seen it since. And so, now I see the pictures of it. It's like, oh yeah, that is Tom Baker. But I should see it again to, appreciate him in that role. Because I had no idea who he was when I was a kid, obviously, because he wasn't the Doctor yet, even.
I have the standalone Blu-rays of the Sinbad movies, but they're also as part of a box set of Rays. It has the other one. Like I think it has Mysterious Island and Jason and the Argonauts, and I think Earth versus the Fighting Saucer. I think they have that one. So if you don't own these, I would say go look for that box set.
That's a good movie too. That's also kind of I would say the height of Ray Harryhausen's stop motion special effects. That's really his best era. There, the '50s, '60s, early '70s. He goes until Clash of the Titans, of course, which was one of his best. But a lot of fantasy stuff. Great movie.
Yeah. Again, one of my favorites growing up. Before I was really into horror movies, sci-fi and fantasy movies were one of my favorite.
I've seen it, but honestly, I'm not sure if I've ever made the Tom Baker connection. That I don't know if I ever put two and two together that he's in there.
It's weird because, again, like I said, he has that Middle Eastern voice, and he's wearing a turban, so you don't see his curls.
And he's got the beard.
He had
I was going to say, I think he looks considerably different.
Yeah, he had.
I'll check it out again too.
Yeah, his face was kind of, had some makeup on to make it look like he's from the Middle East. And of course, he had the beard.
Yeah. Yeah, he's tough to spot. Now I'll have to look at that again too, and try to, with the purpose of spotting him this time.
All right, your turn, Gary.
Okay, well, I'm going to go to 75, and another movie that people really love to hate on, but I think has its merits. William Shatner in Devil's Reign. You've also got Ernest Borgnine in there, of course. Devil's Reign is a weird movie. I will say it sort of just starts right in the middle of it. It doesn't really waste a lot of time getting to it. You can tell there's evil afoot right at the beginning. And Shatner sort of plays the good guy trying to go against the evil, but it the movie, it's 70s, it does not have a happy ending. Not at all. Um, and I'm not going to give too much away, except it's very much a like a demonic kind of cult that's got hold of this town, and Ernest Borgnine's the head of the cult, and Shatner's trying to stand against him. Borgnine wants this book, and Shatner's trying to keep it from him, and it gets pretty bizarre. It's definitely, I mean, it's sort of a B movie by a long shot, but it is certainly worth watching. It has some slow moments. It has some things you're just kind of like, why in the world did they do that? But overall, it's a lot of fun, I mean, in a dark way.
Sounds good.
Shatner's fun to watch in anything. All
Yeah,
right.
that's true.
That's a good one.
All right, so I'm up.
Yes, sir.
My second movie is, I think I wore the shirt last time. I think it might have inspired this episode. Invasion of the Saucer Man. And the Batman connection is, he actually has third billing, but he dies halfway through the movie, is Frank Gorshin, who played the Riddler. And we have Bam on his, and I have another one here. Oh, yeah, I have Ouch. I'll remember those parts of the Batman movie with the things flying up in the screen. Anyway, so this is basically the title is the plot. I don't know if there's much more I can say about that. But Frank Gorshin plays the best friend of the main character, actually his roommate. It kind of starts out as kind of a film noir because you hear the thoughts of the main character reminiscing about this awful thing that happened when these space invaders came to invade the Earth, and so he's driving home with his girlfriend. The main character, not Frank Gorshin, he's driving home with his girlfriend, and they run over a spaceman. Actually, they hit him on the. But then when the cops show up, they're all anxious about this. They call the cops. The cops come out, and they find the best friend, the roommate, is killed by the Frank Gorshin is killed by the car. When they go to investigate that, they find a very high blood alcohol level in his system. And what we come to find out later in the film is that the really cool part, the really spooky part that is kind of spooky, is the spacemen have needles coming out of their fingers, and they're dripping with some kind of liquid. And they find out that they can inject alcohol into people to kill them that way. And they do describe them as little green men. And so the guy and the girlfriend are trying to convince the authorities that we are being invaded by space people and we should do something about this. It's not a bad film. It's definitely somewhat on the cheap. The costumes are actually pretty cool. That's kind of somewhat what they look like. Maybe not quite as realistic as that, but they're not bad. And it's really not too bad a film. Gorshin is the first victim. He goes somewhere around halfway into the film. Just to give you the spoiler, if you're expecting to see him towards the end, you might not. but it's still not a bad film. It's a fun little monster romp. If you like those 50s sci-fi invasion type movies that were so popular at the time, extremely popular at the time. It came from outer space, and I don't know, there's just one after the other they were coming out with. This was 57. So this is about it's quite a while before Batman. Batman starts in 66. But just another little side issue on Gorshin, and I'm wearing the hat. He was part of the Rat Pack, believe it or not. He was friends with Frank Sinatra. He shows up in one or two of the movies, not the real big ones. So he's kind of one of those guys who's kind of in the background of the Rat Pack. So just thought I'd throw that out there for anyone else who's Italian like me and has to like Frank Sinatra, because if you're Italian and you don't like Frank Sinatra, you wind up with cement shoes in a river. So
So he was a Rat Pack understudy, huh?
He was yeah, exactly. He was a Rat Pack understudy. And I believe he benefited his career on that. By the way, I would also like to mention that he did still have talent. He's the only member of the Batman character to win an Emmy. He won the Emmy for Best Supporting Actor for his role in Batman. And then he asked for more money, and they kicked him off the show, and he came back in the third season. But anyway, didn't help his career. It actually hurt it more than it helped. But anyway, Invasion of the Saucer Man, it does have Frank Gorshin. Pretty good role for him too. Fun space invader type movie, worth seeing. Of all the science fiction movies that came out in the 50s, that's one of them. It's one of the hundreds that came out in that decade.
All right. My next movie also starred Tom Baker, and he had just, I don't know the exact date of the year it was, but in 1974, there was a movie called Mutations. It was also known as The Mutation, singular, of Freaks and The Freak Maker. I first saw it as The Freak Maker on Amazon. And it's basically a mad scientist played by Donald Pleasance, was mutating plants like a Venus flytrap with humans and creating these freaks that's supposed to have like the best of both worlds. I mean, be able to think like a human and then to root themselves into the ground to get nourishment so they didn't have to worry about where their food source came from. Well, some of these, the botched up versions of them went to a traveling circus headed up by Tom Baker's character. And this was the one that was inspired by Todd Browning's Freaks. But it had a little more science fiction vibe to it. And then at the beginning, if you can stay through the opening credits, it seemed like you were watching a science film from the 70s. You know, if you could, it's like 5 minutes, but it feels longer. But if you could stay through that and get into it, you know, typical trippy 70s horror movie, you know, British, and it also used some stop motion visuals, so that was kind of an interesting tie-in with the Sinbad movie. This one was for me was kind of a hard one to go through to watch because it's one of the slower 70s films, but it was just that interesting premise of the mad, bringing the 50s mad scientist into the 70s, and then of course, you know, having Tom Baker, which is perfect. He was wearing this colored fedora. He was wearing more of like a trench coat that his Doctor Who, you know, trench coat. It was just like a generic looking one, and he had like some makeup where he, except when you heard him talk, you would not know that it's him because, you know, just prosthetics on it. I think all over his face, it looked like he looked like a mutation. And at first, when I saw that years ago, I thought maybe he was part of it until you start watching the movie and you see that he is the one. And then, of course, just like in the movie Freaks, they rebelled. The mutants and the freaks that were created rebelled. This is one I don't even know if it has even a DVD release, uh, but you can find it up on Amazon under mutations, the mutations. I don't think it's. I think they updated it so it's under that title as opposed to the Freakmaster. I think I like the Freakmaster title better because it kind of describes the film a little bit better. But again, you see the Donald Pleasance as a mad scientist. That's fun. So that is, and I like how they brought in the science part into it, whereas in the Freaks from 1932, they didn't really explain why they came to be. These ones they explain um, they explain it. So, anyways, that's my my third one, and that has Tom Baker, a fourth dog.
Brings us back around to me. And I'm going to move to Star Trek Deep Space Nine. With another movie that people who like this series don't necessarily like this movie, Hellraiser 3 with Terry Farrell in it. Personally, I really like Hellraiser 3. I think it's a great movie. It definitely is a different sort of vibe from the first two Hellraiser movies, which were sort of slow and moody and I don't know, almost artsy. And this is much more of an action movie while still being horror. Um, and I gotta say, one of my favorite lines is in that movie when Terry Farrell's character is getting chased by Pinhead, and she goes into this Catholic church, and this priest is like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Well, I'm being chased by a demon." And he goes out and talks to her about how, there is really no such thing as demons. It's just stories people tell. And Pinhead walks in the door and she goes, "Then what the F is that?" And it's just, I think it's a fun movie. I mean, it's definitely dark. It's just not as dark as the first two movies, you know. Um, and Terry Farrell does a good job. Obviously, she's a good actress. Um, Fun movie.
Yeah, I like that one. I really enjoyed it. I mean, and it comes in that box set that they have, the three of them, the first three.
There's only four that just came out recently. A
Yeah.
really nice deluxe box set. Out of the Box of Torture or something like that, Box of Torment or something like that. It's called, I think.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
But those might be 4K only. I don't know.
I like when they put them out in box sets because it kind of makes it a little easier to get them all at once.
Yep.
More expensive, but easier.
Yeah. Maybe not more expensive than buying each one of them.
True.
I've gotten into a habit of.
I was going to say, plus you've got all of the same edition too at that point, rather than having one from this edition, one from that edition,
I've gotten in the habit of doing at least one more modern horror franchise every Halloween, and probably should do the Hellraiser series. I haven't done that one
That's
over
a good
Halloween
series.
yet. Maybe next year. Yeah, I think I did Halloween last year. I did the Living Dead series one year. But anyway, all right. So I'm up.
Yes, sir.
I've been checking mine off. I'm on number 3, right? Yeah. So my third one, and some of these I just rewatched recently to refresh my memory on them. This one's very different. This one's very serious horror movie, actually, for its time at least. 1964, The Strangler, and it stars in the title role Victor Buono, who was King Tut on TV's Batman, and he had that golden voice too, actually, kind of like Saunders, maybe not quite as beautiful as Saunders' voice, but he had a very boastful, loud, booming voice that he could do for his King Tut. In this one, and it says in the very beginning of the film, and I believe that they did a lot of research on serial killers. And it was a United Artists because I think the majors weren't going to touch this thing because it does get pretty racy. So I don't think it's ever getting out of the cult film status with him going around and trying to kill young women that he's attracted to. And they don't show anything, of course, because it's the 60s, 64, but his facial expressions, you can kind of see that there's a sexual gratification when he's strangling women. But that one can be triggering for certain audiences, perhaps. But it is still a very interesting look at serial killers, and I think it looks at it fairly accurately. He also has this domineering mother that in there that just influences his actions, and you can tell he lives with his mom, but he hates her, and wants to live out on his own, but can't break free, kind of thing. But a very different role for Victor Buono. And right around that 60s time, when they were doing a lot of the hag exploitation, so there was a lot of that vibe in a lot of the films. They were getting racier. They were pushing the limits of the Hays Code, so to speak. This one definitely pushes it about as far as you probably could at that time. But it is a really good. If you like something like what was that new one? The one on Jeffrey Dahmer. If you like Dahmer, if you can stomach through that and try and get into the heads of serial killers and why they do what they do and what they do, you can really enjoy this one and get a feel for it. So I would strongly, and this is one of those that's so bad it's good. This is one of those that I think is good. And if you can stomach the psychological aspects that I just discussed, you can really get a lot out of this film. It's really good, very much worth watching. And Victor Buono, we should also mention, has another Frank Sinatra connection. So I'm on a Sinatra thing, I guess, because he was the villain in some of Sinatra's biggest films, like the Robin and the Seven Hoods. He was the main. Well, he was kind of the henchman of the villain, but anyway, he was one of the main villains in that film. So one of the opposing casino owners that was opposing Sinatra. So he was kind of a Rat Pack connection there too. But anyway, he did a lot of great films, great voice, and I would watch him in anything too, anything. Victor Buono in The Strangler. And I don't think he's specifically supposed to be a specific strangler. They're just a general serial killer kind of a thing. But still a great movie. Definitely worth watching, I think.
Sounds good. My next one comes from the Eighth Doctor, and it's Alien 3 from 1992. Now, in hindsight, a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about it, but I remember when I first saw it, I thought it was different than the other two, which was good. I mean, you didn't want carbon copies of movies, sequels. So, and in this one, he played Paul McGann is not one of the main characters, but he plays like a mass murderer, and it just again kind of polar opposite of being the Doctor. I mean, you just, but I'm probably one of the very few that enjoy Alien 3. It's not as good. Obviously, it's not as good as the first one or Aliens, but it's mine. I'm also one of the few that think that each one of them are fine.
I saw Alien 3 in the theater, and I remember being very disappointed. My problem with it was none of the characters except Ripley was likable, and you knew very early in the movie that Ripley wasn't going to make it out of it because she had one of the eggs inside of her.
Right.
And so it's like the only character who was even likable, I thought, you knew was going to die, so it kind of didn't have a lot of interest in it. That
Right.
was my problem with it.
And also too, I think one of the things that a lot of people weren't happy with is that everyone on the escape pod, the little girl Hicks,
Yeah,
they didn't survive. And I think that wasn't in the original story. It's just studio meddling, of course. And then I think had they survived, I think it would have been as good as the other two. I mean, but I also like that it was because it was a prison planet. Everything was minimalistic, so you didn't have a lot of the lavish sets that you had in the other. That could also be why they're so used to those high tech sets on both the other two. So I think that could be one of the reasons why they. But like you said, also her being the only character to survive from the and all the only one character you kind of feel a little bit for is the one that played by Charles S. Dutton. You kind of, but
kind
not.
of, yeah.
But that everybody on there is just, and then that kind of. I mean, I'm sure most people have seen it by now. That ending, that little twist when the Bishop character was actually the owner of the company. So it was, you saw that it was him, and it was the human version of it. So it was. I thought that was kind of clever. I mean, now looking back, you can piece that okay, that it's gonna happen. But when you first saw it in the movie theaters, it was like, oh yeah, that's wild, But I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, not the greatest of the franchise, but not the worst, I don't think. And like I said, you get to see Paul McGann pre-Doctor Who. Now, I had heard years ago, my understanding was they would get it at the same time, and someone said the reason for Paul's wig was because he had butched hair because of Alien 3. So I was putting two and two together that they were filmed very close together. They weren't. It was 4 years apart. But I guess he maintained shorter hair. So they needed to add that curly hair to, So that is my fourth film.
Okay, brings us back around to me. And now this is going to be a little different one for me in that it does have horror aspects, but it's actually more science fiction and action. And I'm not 100% sure it qualifies as a cult film. It was a blockbuster when it came out, but since then I think people have sort of soured on it a lot. And the actor is Data Brent Spiner. He doesn't have a huge role in it. The movie's Independence Day, where he plays the scientist, long-haired scientist.
He's in that, isn't he?
Yeah, he's he is such a great character actor. I mean, look at him on Night Court, and he
He
can just
is.
the Wheelers, and it's like he can pull off any role. I think he's just such a great actor, and it's not a huge part in the movie, but it's kind of a really memorable part in the movie.
It is, and that is a good movie, actually. And you're right,
Yeah,
they don't show that much anymore. For a while there, like every Fourth of July, they would show it. Now, I don't know when. I don't ever see it anymore.
and I've heard a lot of really, really soured opinions on the movie too.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know if it's fallen out of favor, but
I don't think it's a bad movie. I mean,
no,
it's
it's a
still a
lot
pretty
of
good
fun.
movie. It's very much like that H.G. Wells story
War of the
that they did,
Worlds. War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds. Yeah, it's kind of a take on that, although I think unofficially, but
Yeah,
that's kind of what it is. Maybe it got too political because don't they blow up the Capitol building?
yeah,
So
Yeah,
every 4 years, one political side cheers and the other side cries, and
yeah.
then the next 4 years, the other side cheers and the other side cries. I don't know, something like that. It's a good movie. It's a decent movie though, and if anybody hasn't seen it or hasn't seen it in a long time, they should see it again. It's a decent
oh
movie.
yeah,
It's a
it's
lot of
fun.
fun.
It's a fun movie too.
It is. It is. I forgot he's in there. He is in there.
Yep,
All right. Back around to me.
yep.
So, so of course I had to find something with the main character in there, and actually he is in the decent movie that I do watch every now and again. Adam West, if you don't know, is in the last full length feature film with a theatrical release of the Three Stooges
Oh,
called The Outlaws is Coming.
wow.
Believe it or not, towards the end of the Stooges' career, they finally got to do full length feature films, which they want to do their entire careers. They're best known now, of course, for their shorts. They're probably the greatest short subject makers of all time. But they did get to do several films, and they spoofed things. They did an outer space one with the Three Stooges in orbit. They did around Three Stooges go around the world in a days, which is actually a pretty decent adaptation of Around the World in 80 Days. But anyway, that's maybe for another episode. But this is where they spoof a Western, and Adam West plays the good guy who's teaming. The Three Stooges are teaming with to try and beat the bad guys and turn a bad town around and capture all the villains. And at the end, they have all the villains lined up in these chairs, and the Stooges are yelling, "Goodbye, crime! Hello, law and order!" And any of them that disagrees, they give them the Three Stooges bops on their heads and hit them with things and stuff like that. Until they all agree to start cheering, chanting, "Goodbye, crime! Hello, law and order!" So it's weird Three Stooges stuff. It's crazy slapstick stuff. By the time they do the movies, they don't do the eye poke anymore because they were getting younger audiences. They pulled that from the repertoire. But I don't know. Some of those movies are still kind of fun to watch. They still have their moments. They still have bad puns, which I love. And this particular one has Adam West. A couple of years before, this is what year is this? This is 1965. 1 year before he plays Batman. Probably one of his last roles before then. Therefore, and he did do. I think he does a number of other westerns, usually in small roles, early in his career. But so he's not really out of place in there. He does a pretty good job. He's got that golden voice too. He's got a decent voice for a lot of these parts. It's they only did what, about 5 films or something like that. The Stooges, something like that, and they did get a little better as they went along. I think, in my opinion, at least. But this one was decent. The only thing that the Stooges did after this was a made for TV movie called Kook's Tour, which was never released until it went on to VHS, like in the '90s. And that one's a little tough to watch. We're getting pretty old now. This one they still have a little something left in the gas tank, and it's kind of a fun movie. I recommend it if you like the Stooges slapstick. But so that's my fourth film. The Outlaws is Coming.
Okay. All right. My final film is from the 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi. This is Lair of the White Worm from 1988.
That's a
And,
good movie, actually.
and that's loosely based on the 1911 Bram Stoker novel. It has a little bit of horror, some comedy in it, supernatural thing, and it's done by Ken Russell, so it has his touch to it. And it's basically about it follows residents in a rural England manor, and that are tormented by a priestess after the skull of a serpent was unearthed on an archaeological dig. And one of the Peter Capaldi's in there, and it's so fun to see him so young there. Like many years before, and Angus, he plays a cop named Angus, and he's part of the manor, and it's just such a trippy, surreal kind of a take on that old story, and which I sometimes like when they kind of just inspired by, where instead of doing it, page by page, because sometimes you won't be able to replicate things, because everyone's imagination is going to be different. So it's better not to. And then of course you're going to get people who say, "Oh, it's nothing like it." So it's like you can't win. But if it was up to me, I'd rather have it inspired by than completely adapted. And I just like it. Basically, it had so very British. Just some of the humor that's in it. I mean, if you like when I call it a comedy, I mean, some people, it's not like a slapstick like The Stooges or anything American. I mean, it is British comedy, which is one of my favorites. But I remember seeing this a long time ago, the very first time. It was in the video store, and I was just curious because it had the word Bram Stoker, and I was like, going, okay, this should be fun to watch. And my younger mind didn't grasp everything. It just, my older one, after watching it a few times, kind of go, oh, okay. If you like those, the British humor, I think you'll like this one. I think it, and also for the Doctor Who fans, to see the 12th Doctor decades younger. I mean, it's just kind of cool. I mean, and he had the almost like I want to say almost like Tom Baker style hair, but it wasn't as curly, but it was just nice and poofy. But,
I got onto a big Bram Stoker kick for a while there, and I read a bunch of his books, and that was one of them that I read. And it's not bad. It's a decent book. They in the book they kind of describe them as vampires, but they don't really he doesn't use the word vampire ever.
yeah.
It's and I think the movie kind of takes that on a little bit because I watched the movie after I read the book.
Yeah,
if I
when
recall.
you see that the humans that are bitten by the serpent, they have these nice big fangs that
Yeah.
you would think, when I first saw it, I was thinking, okay, this is a different kind of vampire movie, because it didn't say of the same name,
Right.
It said Bram Stoker. So I thought maybe this was like a different take on Dracula. But
It kind of is, but it isn't.
yeah, um, and then Hugh Grant is in it,
Oh, that's right. He isn't. A young
uh,
Hugh Grant, I think.
and Amanda Donoghue is in it. Oh,
Wasn't it mid 80s, 85, 86, something like that? Or
88,
what?
88
88. Okay.
towards the end, but it has a total 80s look to it.
Yeah.
Very good.
And it's not a bad depiction of the book, in my opinion. It's definitely not, like you said, not exactly like it for sure. They certainly didn't go page for page, but it did capture the same vibe, I thought, was my opinion, except for the humor, but there's no humor in the book.
And also it's lesser known
It is.
of his novels, so people like going, huh? What? He did anything else besides Dracula?
He did. He actually, I actually wrote a paper on it before that he not only created everything we think we know about vampires, or at least in the movies, he also pretty much created everything we think we know about mummy movies, which maybe I'll have to. I actually wrote a paper on that and had it published in some places a while ago. I should probably bring it out of the dust it off and try to republish it somewhere else. But uh, he really did. He was very influential on the influential into the horror genre, not just vampires, which he gets a lot of credit for, but he doesn't get much credit for his mummy influence.
Right.
Jewel of the Seven Stars. I'll have to cover that. There's several movie adaptations that depict that. None of them really captured it that well, in my opinion, but maybe I'll rewatch some of them and see what I think is the best of them.
There you
The
go.
best of the worst. One thing I should say about Lair of the White Worm in the novel, though, if anybody wants to seek that out, there's a racist section in there with the N word and depiction of black people in the novel that thankfully they did take out of that movie, is not in the movie.
Right.
But it's worth mentioning just in case, any trigger warnings, things like that, whatever, however you want to term that. But I make no defense for him, but he's dead now, so he's not getting any money if you watch or read the books anymore. So
Right. But also too, I don't condone it, but it was of the time.
Yeah, it was.
And I think that's what a lot of people need to look at is it's of the time, because it's, we could always hindsight, and see, oh, it was bad. But
right.
at the time, it was just how society was. I mean,
it was an attitude prevalent attitude of the time, yes. And again, if you're reading the books or the books are in public domain now, and that movie did remove all those references, thankfully. Hey, there you go. And he's dead, so he's not getting any money if you watch them or read the book. So, you're not exactly promoting it.
I kind of wish this was bigger on the inside. All right, well, that was my final film.
Okay, well, that brings us back around to me. And for my final film, I'm back to Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Nana Visitor, who plays Kira. And this is a 2009 movie. And it's one that I was like, I saw part of, and then I thought, I don't want to see it. It's terrible. Well, then a few months ago, I actually saw the whole movie, and I changed my mind. Friday the 13th, the remake, which, one of the things about it is it's not just the remake of the first Friday the 13th movie. They basically did all four movies, the first four movies, sort of just cutting out the stuff that wasn't necessary and making it into one movie that's got a lot of kills, a lot of action. They made some changes too, but and some of the changes I was okay with, some of them not so much. I actually reviewed the 4K version of this of the movie. And Nana Visitor plays, she doesn't have a big role in it, but she plays Mrs. Voorhees, Jason's mother. And so but you gotta understand it's not the Friday the 13th you're used to, but there are enough parallels. And if you watch, it's like, I love how here's an example of how they sort of took some of the things from the other series or the other movies, but then they sort of twisted him around. Like one of his most famous kills in the original movies is when he grabs the woman in the sleeping bag and just slams her against the tree over and over again. Well, he grabs a woman in a sleeping bag in this one, and you think that's what he's going to do. No, he puts her in the fire and burns her alive instead. So it's like they twist some of the stuff enough to make it interesting, and yet they're paying tribute to it at the same time. Um, I can see why people didn't like it, and like I said, I saw a little bit of it and thought, no, I don't want to see this. It's terrible. And then when I saw the whole movie, it makes a lot more sense, and it just seems to work better. And the beautiful thing about it is it doesn't replace the other ones. The other ones are still there. You can still watch them. It's just a
Right.
variation on it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
I haven't either, but the way you described it makes me, I've been curious about it because I kind of thought it was just a remake of the first one, but the way you said it kind of takes on the first four
Yeah,
makes
it
me think,
literally
maybe
does.
I should watch that.
It,
That
it,
actually
it, it-
sounds good because
yeah, it's like a condensed version of the first four movies.
yeah, and just before I ditched cable, they were coming on television, the Friday the 13th movies on some of the stations that I had that didn't edit them, and I was watching them. I was like, these movies could really be condensed.
Oh
That's
yeah,
literally my thought.
yeah.
'Cause
There's a lot of filler in those movies.
there's like the first 15 minutes and the last 15 minutes is really all you need to watch of the first four films.
Yeah,
If this just crunches it into that, it's like,
yeah,
that actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
yeah.
and did you guys know too? I think it's this summer uh, on Peacock. They're going to have the prequel to the movie
Oh yeah,
Camp Crystal Lake.
Camp Crystal
That's right. I
Lake.
think I
Yeah,
heard about that.
So
yeah. I've talked about that in Spooky News a couple times.
I'm curious about that. I mean,
Got
I'm not like
potential.
gung ho to watch it, but I'll watch it because I want to see what they do and if they do it right. It could be a prequel or it could be, or if anything, it would be good as a reboot, but as a series. And then for everyone out there, there was a Friday the 13th series, but had nothing to do with the movies.
No, it was like a horror
That's true.
anthology series.
Yeah,
It was.
but it
I
was
used to like that show, though. Actually, it was a pretty good
It
show.
wasn't bad, but it's like, why call it Friday the 13th?
Yeah, good point. Fair point.
I mean, there was a lot of. I would say with that one, there was a lot of filler.
Yeah.
All right, Bill.
Okay, so my final film is so I rewatched this one recently too because I wanted to refresh my memory, and apparently it was the American International Pictures wanted to branch out into the television genre, and this was their first made-for-TV movie. It was Mars Needs Women. And one of the scientists that is investigating this message that was coming in from Mars was the actress Yvonne Craig, who played Batgirl in season 3. And she plays opposite one of the Martians, who's played by, I think his name is Joe Kirk. He was a child actor for Disney, actually. And he's actually an adult here. Still not very old, though. He still looks like he's about 18. He's probably not much older than that. This is 1967, so she was already playing. She was already playing Batgirl by the time this movie came out. It's right about the time she started, and she doesn't even pop in until about halfway in. So wait for it. It is pretty good though. It's a little racy for television for 1967. You wouldn't, so the plot is basically what it sounds like. Mars is sending a message to Earth saying that they are out of women. They need women. So they are coming to Earth to steal women for their planet so they can keep reproducing. And of course, they're after the most beautiful films, the most beautiful women, because it's Samuel Z. Arkoff and it's American International Pictures and John H. Nicholson. And I believe Seems Yarkov's most famous lines in the book that I have based on their pictures was TNA, that's what we need. Everything else is just filler. So you do get some women in some scantily clad outfits. There's a G-string in there. You're not going to get any nudity because it is television, made for television. But even that was pretty racy for its time, though. Just throwing that out there anyway. Whether you think that's a plus or a minus, it's up to you. It gets a little slow at times, but it's kind of it's an interesting film, an interesting time frame for its interesting time capsule for what it is. Oh, it's 68, excuse me. Yvonne Craig in yeah, that was her year of in season 3 of TV's Batman. Mars Needs Women. Not a bad film. I think it's worth checking out. Um, I saw it again. No, I didn't see it on Tubi. I watched my DVD of it. That's right. But that's it. Mars Needs Women. And it's a little tongue in cheek at times too. There's a woman playing tennis with her boyfriend, and all of a sudden she just disappears. Things like that happen throughout the film. You know, they're grabbing these women. There's a woman in the nightclub. She's the one on the G-string, and she disappears. And then they bring in these scientists to find out what's going on. And ironically, one of the scientists falls in love with one of the Martian aliens, and that's Yvonne Craig, and she goes voluntarily. You know, or maybe she doesn't. I don't know. You'll have to see the movie to find out.
She's
But
my
it's
favorite. She's my
fun
favorite.
alien.
She's my favorite back.
He's awesome in that movie, in that
Maybe she
TV
was just
series.
maybe she was just playing along so that she could find out what was going on and thwart them in her Batgirl persona.
Could be. It could be. Joe Kirk, by the way, was in Old Yeller, was one of the Disney movies that he did. He was in a number of Disney movies. So, you know, child actor mostly. He did a couple of other movies afterwards, too. A few other horror movies. I looked up on IMDb. Can't remember what else it was now. But anyway, he did do a number of other science fiction and horror movies later in his career, into the 90s, I believe, even. But, you know, he really slowed down after he became an adult. Maybe he was getting fewer roles, or I don't know. But he does all right in this one, you know. So, you know, if you like American International Pictures, and you liked and they really deserve a lot of credit. American International Television is also where we got Gamera. That's where we got a lot of our Samson movies, a lot of those foreign movies, those genres, those franchises would not have come to the United States without American International Pictures, which was branching off in American National Television. If it weren't for them, this was the first one that they actually made themselves instead of bringing in from foreign distributors. So they deserve a lot of credit for a lot of my interests. Whether that's a good thing or bad, right? It might be another up for debate, but but they really do deserve a lot of credit. Even a couple of Godzilla movies they brought here. Godzilla versus the Sea Monster was American International Television. So, you know, it's a fun little another alien invasion type movie. Of all of them that came out in the 50s and 60s, that's another one of but, you know, his Red Scare thing was, you know, people are turning communist. You had the McCarthy hearings and things like that, you know. So it was depicted in movies with these aliens from outer space coming here, and a lot of it has been written on that, you know, and made out of that in when people watch these movies. That's how it was connecting with people. So, you know, it was a fun, it's a fun little science fiction romp if you like that kind of thing, which I do. I love that kind of thing. So you will not see Yvonne Craig in a scantily clad clothes, though. Actually, if that's what you're looking for, it's not there. But she is. So that's my last.
Yeah, I like some of those kind of TV movies that they did, and I don't know. Some people when I try to explain the kind of movies that I like, they go, "Oh, you mean those cheapo movies?" I'm like going, "Well, yeah, but they have a charm to it." And yeah, I just don't like the acting in it. And I said, well, if you want Academy Award winning acting, go watch a Shakespeare film or something. It's like, this is not Shakespeare.
As, as I've said on this show a few times, I like two types of movies. I like movies that are good enough, and I like movies that are bad enough. It's all those movies in between I'm a little indifferent towards.
Right.
I like them really bad, or I had one really good and four really bad this week. So, which is actually better than most months. So, usually I just do five clunkers.
I mean, for the most part, a lot of the movies that we like to watch is I kind of classify them as movies that you check your brain at the door. If you're trying to find something intellectual, there's stuff out there. Some of these movies have some in it, but not. I mean, that's not. I mean, acting is not. I wouldn't say, and some of them subpar, but they're not like they're. And you could probably tell that if the actors know what the material is, they may not be giving it their all. Going, okay, kind of just going through the motions sometimes.
Sometimes, but I think a lot of times they didn't really have much time to rehearse. In that
Right.
same, the book is Fast and the Furious, the story of American International Pictures that I was referencing earlier. There's a story in there with this one actress. I might have told this on another episode. I forget which movie it was, but it was a Corman movie. They were talking about, okay, you say this line to this guy, you walk into this room and you say this line to this person, and then we'll say cut. And he says, do you think you have it? And the actor says, well, I think I'll have it by the time we do dress rehearsal. And the director says, that was dress rehearsal. They didn't have a lot of time to learn this stuff. It sounds like it was the first time they said these lines in their life. It probably was. There's no cheap, low budget movies. There's no time. You have to crank these things out like sausages. That's how you make money. But they still had that. They do still have a charm. I like how you said that. They do have a charm to them. And you know what? If they were those movies that are in between, they're probably not a cult movie. That's the ones that everybody goes to see, right?
Yeah,
people don't like the art movies. That's how they become cult. People don't like the lower down movies that aren't that good. That's how they become cult movies.
Yeah.
If everybody liked them, they wouldn't be cult.
True. That's very true. And I'm sure like American Internationals, well, mostly what is it? Some like Hammer Films, and they would film like multiple movies at the same time, and
sure,
save on sets. Like the Edgar Allan Poe movies that Roger Corman did. A lot of it, if you look really close, I mean, I know you do. You know it, but the average
they were all done at the same house.
Viewer,
yeah, they were all done at the same sets, same castles.
I mean, you could probably be like that nitpicker, like going, oh, I know where that set is. They did it on this other movie, But like I said, low budget is just that. It's low budget.
But that's also because they were, they had physical sets instead of, today they're doing all these films in front of green screens and stuff like that, which, I mean, it's fine, but that's the way it's done today. But, they had physical things there in those days, just like your Harryhausen movies. They were miniatures like this that they would move and then take a picture and then move and then take a picture until you got enough to make a movie out of.
Right.
Great ones. I love stop motion, by the way. I'm glad you did some Ray Harryhausen. I got to do some of those too, because I love the stop motion movies, stop motion effects.
All right. Well, looks like we've got another episode in the bag. I thank you both again.
It was fun.
And everybody has their own little hat.
Yeah, I got jealous. You guys were always wearing hats, so I wanted to wear a hat.
I got a Klingon hat because it fit with the Star Trek thing.
So, again, thank you guys. I appreciate it, and everyone down below. I mean, what are your favorite from small screen to big screen films? pick a small screen franchise and then find 5 movies that the actors, lead actors, what they did outside of that TV series. It'd be kind of cool to see what you guys pick.
Yeah, that would be cool to see.
You have
That
any
would probably
suggestions?
give us ideas for sequel.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, guys. And thank you very much for watching this episode. And stay tuned for the next one.